An important part of the photogrammetry process is pre-planning. The entire process starts with scouting the location that you would like to capture. Chances are you already know some intriguing location that you would like to visit with a camera, but first I would recommend to capture a so-called draft scan. The photos can be taken really quickly on smartphone. The whole purpose of this stage of the workflow is to check the potential angles and split the model into modules and just generally pre-plan the scanning session. Here we can tell that the wall ended up being pretty dense in terms of points, while the upper portion of the building suffers from not enough information, and that's something to keep in mind in the final photo session. It is especially evident with the mesh reconstructed that the balcony turned into kind of a blob. We should probably take it into consideration and do something about it. And then it's useful to split the entire object into modules or parts. So for example, on the first visit we will be scanning the wall, and then this part, and then that part. It's useful to have this mental model in place. Regarding pre-planning the weather, we should aim at getting the cloudy weather ideally. The sunny weather obviously produces hard shadows, and they are tediously hard to erase in post. The perfect type of weather for photogrammetry is overcast, cloudy weather without rain. Even if it may seem that the overcast weather produces this kind of featureless look on the object, it's not the case. With just enough spatial resolution in your capturing device, there is always a lot of detail, more than enough for unbelievable reconstruction. Once again, even though there are applications that are able to remove cast shadows in a semi-automatic way, it's still pretty much a showstopper, especially with some dappled light type of lighting scenario. On top of that, as we have already mentioned, the shadows tend to move, and that is definitely a red flag. It often leads to blobby and wavy geometry. Okay, I think it's still important to mention the delighting software like Agisoft Delighter in the context of removing the lighting information from the textures. For now, let's say that the textures with the overcast lighting baked in are still much easier to delight than the textures with the sharp shadows. We'll pay attention to delighting throughout the course and do it together in Agisoft Delighter. So before moving on location, it's worth checking the weather report. Yet another potential consideration is the time of day. Chances are that even if the weather is sunny, there still is a probability of the shadow being in the right place throughout the day. That is, if we have visited that location before and kind of understand where the sun will be at that moment. To be fair, that's a bit harder to predict than simply checking the weather forecast, but not impossible. And the sunny days provide a good opportunity to scan interiors. That's also something to think about. And I think there's no need to mention that there is no need to scan objects at night and late in the evening. On top of the sharp, multicolored light sources everywhere, it's simply not enough ambient light to get to the correct exposure. I find it fascinating that sometimes it's a matter of choosing the right time of the year. If you happen to stay in one location for long enough, like one city or something, you will probably wait long enough to get an opportunity to experience the same location in various seasons. So maybe you cannot scan it in winter due to the snow, and it's overgrown in summer, but then comes fall, let's say September 12th. And you discover out of a sudden that it's available for photogrammetry. Pretty much the challenges like the greenery blocking the main object fall under the category of accessibility. It may be the trees, or it may be related to the activities of humans in this area, especially on working days, or maybe on weekends specifically. It depends. There may be cars blocking the view of the object, or anything else of that sort. There could be a reconstruction of this part of the city started unexpectedly on that day when you were about to take a photo scan. So that's also something to include in your pre-planning if possible. So thanks for watching, that was Gleb Alexandrov. For the photogrammetry course, in this video we have discussed the necessity of doing some pre-planning, scouting, checking the weather, choosing the right time of day if it depends on the position of the sun, well, choosing the right time of the year, and lastly checking the accessibility of location and maybe including it in your pre-planning. And of course, it never hurts to visit the location in advance, spend some time there to create a draft photo scan. All these preparation steps will pay off during the final photo session.